In the ancient world, freedom was a privilege, not a right. Millions were born not as citizens, but as property. They had no names that mattered, no voices that counted, and no future they could choose. In the markets of mighty empires, human beings were bought and sold like livestock. Their backs carried the weight of grand cities, their sweat built the palaces of kings, yet their lives meant nothing. To be a slave was to exist without hope, watched, whipped, owned, and erased. And it was into this world of chains that our story begins. But this was no ordinary slave. Before the chains, before the arena, before the rebellion, he had once known another life. Some say he was born beyond the empire's borders, raised in a land of warriors. Others whisper that he had once fought under a different banner, tasted battle, and understood strategy. Whatever his past, Rome did not care. To them, he was nothing more than a captured body, muscle to be used, blood to be spilled, and a spirit meant to be broken. They sent him to the gladiator schools, where men were trained not to live, but to die for entertainment. Inside the gladiator school, every day was a rehearsal for death. The crowd would cheer tomorrow, but tonight, the men prepared in silence. In the shadows of the arena, a plan was born. Whispers moved between chained beds, stolen glances passed across the yard, and a dangerous hope began to spread. They would not die for Rome's amusement. They would fight for their freedom instead. When night fell, the doors of their prison creaked open, not by mercy, but by rebellion. Steel met steel, torches fell, guards screamed, and for the first time, the arena ran red not for entertainment, but for liberation. They fled into the wild, wounded, exhausted, but free. In the forests and hills beyond Rome's reach, the escaped men gathered their breath and their courage. For the first time in years, they stood without chains. Word began to spread like fire across the countryside. A band of freed slaves was fighting back, and slaves still bound in fields, mines, and estates listened. They whispered, they waited, they hoped. One by one, then dozens, then hundreds slipped away to join him. What had begun as a desperate escape was transforming into something far more dangerous, an army of the forgotten. They trained, they organized, they armed themselves with whatever they could find. And at their center stood one man, not as a master, but as a leader they chose to follow. Rome had created a slave, but Rome had also created its greatest enemy. News of the rebellion reached Rome like a stain on its perfect image. Senators scoffed, generals laughed. To them, this was not a war, it was a nuisance. Runaway slaves, they said, easily crushed. A legion was dispatched, confident, disciplined, and certain of victory. Gleaming armor, perfect formations, and the full authority of the empire marched toward the rebels. But when they met in battle, Rome was not facing frightened fugitives. They were facing fighters with nothing left to lose. Steel clashed, shields shattered, and for the first time in history, Roman soldiers broke formation and fell back. What was meant to be a quick punishment became a humiliating defeat, and somewhere in Rome, fear quietly began to grow. The defeat did not stay quiet, it echoed across the empire. Farms burned in the distance, supply roads fell silent. Messengers arrived breathless, carrying news Rome did not want to hear. What the Senate had dismissed as a slave riot was now spreading like a storm across the land. Entire regions slipped beyond Roman control as freed men rallied to the rebellion. In the streets of Rome, merchants whispered in fear. Soldiers marched with unease. Even the proud banners of the empire seemed to hang heavier than before. This was no longer a disturbance. It was a challenge to Roman power itself. And at the center of it all stood one man, once owned, now feared, proving that an empire built on chains could be shaken by those very chains breaking. At last, Rome responded with its full strength. No more minor legions, no more arrogance. The empire gathered its best commanders, its hardened veterans, and its most disciplined armies. Thousands of soldiers advanced beneath towering standards of gold and crimson, a wall of steel moving with relentless purpose. On the other side stood the rebels, weary, outnumbered, but unbroken. They knew the odds, they knew the cost, yet they did not retreat. As dawn broke, the two forces collided like thunder. Dust filled the air, shields splintered, spears shattered. The ground trembled beneath the weight of history. At the heart of the chaos, the former slave fought not as a warrior seeking glory, but as a man defending the freedom he had seized. And when the sun began to set, the field lay silent, soaked in blood, and forever changed. The rebellion was crushed. The man who had risen from chains was gone. But Rome did not leave unchanged. The terror, the humiliation, and the fear remained etched into the empire's memory. For generations after, rulers would remember how close a single slave came to breaking their power. His name became more than a man. It became a warning and a symbol. A warning that no empire is untouchable. A symbol that freedom can be born even in the darkest captivity. Because sometimes the most dangerous force in history is not an army, but a soul that refuses to remain in chains.